If I ruled the world, I love 'em, baby.
If I Rule the World podcast welcomes, let's see, the Lord Goat.
Yes, sir.
And this is the second time you're on the podcast.
That is correct.
When you were originally on, you were actually going by Gore Elohim, Gore-tex. First question I would have for you is, what is the reason for the name change?
I think around 2006, a buddy of mine received an email from the company. I had been selling a bunch of T-shirts, some stuff, I didn't have any problems before. I was selling T-shirts with weed leaves, naked nurses, exploitational T-shirts.
Yeah.
Didn't have a problem. And one day I get an email from somebody from Gore-tex. And my first reaction was, who's the rat? Because that's how it works. It's not, I wasn't selling enough T-shirts at Macy's or somewhere for somebody who worked at the company to find my shit and start harassing me.
Right.
So once everybody realized, probably who the rat is, that's another story. It's irrelevant.
Sounds relevant.
I spoke to the lawyer. The lawyer was actually a really cool guy. You know what I mean? He was like, listen, you just have to change the name, really. I mean, but he wasn't being Hitler about it, but he pretty much told me there's no real chance I have of using the name, which is fine.
Yeah.
But I said, listen, I've been using the name over 10 years. People all over the world, it's like, it's kind of synonymous. So it's be really fucking weird for me to use anything else.
Yeah.
I'm not using your logo. I'm not using your fonts. There's really nothing bad about what I'm doing. If anything, it's enforcing people to probably check out your products. Cause like I've been wearing that stuff since the late 80s when nobody gave a shit about Gore-tex. People like, what the hell is that? Fishing stuff? Like people were a little like, it wasn't like that hot like when I used to wear it back in the day. It wasn't like this blown up thing where it's like there's 50 ads on Instagram and there's like some ad with like a guy hiking in China. Yeah. And it's like, what pissed me off is like they were trying to erase me so they could, and you could kind of see what they're doing now, where they want to do all these offshoots with this company like North Face, with Nike. They do all this stuff so they can get urban audiences. That's all they're really trying to do right now. Yeah. So it's like you want to bury me, someone who has a footprint in urban audiences, right? And you're basically telling me to get lost. You want to bury me, and so they can do this with different companies. I wasn't really going for that, It wasn't really,
Realistically, like let's say you had like Mark Cuban money, like could you go back at them?
Well, here's the thing. What I want to figure out is somebody like Everlast. That's I heard he had to pay them X amount of dollars and they got off his back.
Smith & Wesson.
Right. That stuff was somehow worked out. It wasn't like the lawyer said to me, hey, if you pay us $75,000, you could use the name. Right. They didn't want anything to do. They didn't want me to have anything to do with the name because somebody probably sent them pictures of like shirts with tits all over them. Right. So they're like, dude, it's like not cool.
It depends. Like you probably can't be like Mick anything. McDonald's holds the like worldwide patent on all that.
You could be McDowell's.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do that. My argument was, listen, there's a million Gore bands, and that's the next thing. The guy was like, listen, we own the trademark for Gore since 1972. I was like, hey, buddy, there's 8,000 bands from Brazil with the name Gore in it, and there's 16,000 from LA. So pick your battles. Like, you can't own everything, guy.
The problem is with those death metal bands, the way they write their names, nobody
can't read them.
They can't read it.
But the thing is, it's kind of like I wasn't able to use Gore because it's still synonymous with Gore-tex. So there's like a legal liability, that happens where you can't use the name because the public would still see me as, for example, I don't know, Gore Watson, could be Gore Manson, anything still comes back to Gore-tex because in people's minds, and that's the whole legal thing. So I couldn't even use that. So in the midst of that, it's like I'm trying to make records and do stuff. I'm getting cease and desists. Long story short, I worked something out with them. Yeah. And I was like, listen, you guys got to break me off something if you want me to change the name. Right. And, I'm not going to get too much into that, but they did the right thing as far as that goes. but it's
Wow.
never.
See,
no-
I wouldn't
Yeah.
expect that outcome.
They cut me a check because here's what happened. The lawyer was like, "Listen, man," he's like, "I understand you're fans, whatever."
This is your lawyer or their lawyer?
That's their lawyer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's their
Yeah.
lawyer. The guy was like, "Listen, if you feel like you want Gore to cut, head Gore, if you want Gore to cut you a check, you should probably write him a letter."
Huh.
Oh,
So I was like,
gotcha.
like, okay, write him a letter. He's like, yeah, just let him know what's up. Let him know, this is like your livelihood. You have kids or whatever. Just let him know. So I wrote him a letter. I basically kept it 100% real. I didn't lie about anything. I said, I'm a fan, and I know about the company. I'm a fan. Yeah, I have records out. I've toured. What's the problem? I'm not, And it was really just about content. It's like they didn't. When the company disagrees with your content, it's not like they hate your guts and they want to kill your family.
Right.
It's just like, hey, man, you can't use our wordplay that's been copyrighted since 1972. Nothing personal. I said, cool, write me a check. They did. They said if I want to do shows, I can put that on the poster.
Okay.
Or formerly known as, and I can use it for a little while.
To
Right.
transition into
The transition. The truth is, I didn't change my Facebook pages. I didn't change my YouTube.
Yeah.
Right.
I kind of, because the thing was, I was getting so fucked because fans wouldn't know where to find me.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm like, okay, this is the new hub, but then there's still thousands of people here.
Yeah.
And the whole thing to this day, even if they wrote me a check for $500,000, it fucked me. Because even if they wrote me a check for $500,000, it completely screwed everything up. So there's still people now that are like, oh, I thought you were Gore Elohim, and who's that? And it's like, yeah, you think I really wanted to have 5 different names?
Right.
I feel like you knocked it out of the park with Lord Goat this time.
I love that.
And I think really, I don't know, you put a lot of stuff out last year. And this year you seem to, I know you're going to be working on a new record, or you are with Stu Bangers for sure, who did the Cannibal Hulk stuff. So and now the way, I feel like streaming is, I feel like soon I'm sure you'll have the Spotify up and running by the time the album drops.
Absolutely.
I think it's kind of like, I don't know, new life. I think you could really maintain it now because in those times, I feel like it was such a turbulent streaming era time and all this other shit. Now, I was talking to George about it. I don't know how you feel about it because obviously you're a national act and but the way somebody broke it down, which made sense, was back then, if you sold a CD on Geffen, you were gonna get $2-3 maybe, and now the streaming revenues seem to just be constant, and you'll get a constant payoff.
I think it depends. I think any group or singers, rappers, whatever, when there's the idea of a major label, you really think that you're really going to be getting a lot more. So people want to compare the two eras and say this was better at this point, but really you were still going to make 15 cents on the dollar on your own record. So you weren't really making that much from royalties unless you sold 750,000 copies, and then you make a few bucks. Other than that, on a major, you're in the hole. You're constantly having meetings with them to spend more money when they don't want to. So that's just a loan. The digital thing is okay to an extent. You have to have a lot of material out. People ask me, even whatever, young rappers, people inexperienced, people starting. It's not something I even advise to get into if it's a money making venture.
For sure.
Because you're gonna lose money.
Yeah.
There's no money to be made when you're at that level. And a lot of people don't understand you're going to need 4 or 5 years until you can pay your rent from rap music. And that's probably even being nice about it.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I'm a realist, and it's I really would rather tell a kid, hey, man, you have a job, you have something cool you like to do. Do you go to school, man? It doesn't have to be school. It's just, don't do that. Don't think, no one should think hip hop is going to save your life. You're going to buy a car. Don't think about that, because this era, it's really not like that. And it's you see who's getting deals. Not a lot of people are succeeding.
Yeah.
Everything is for Instagram. Well, it's okay, you want people to think you're doing a lot better than you are. And that's attached to the social media stigma, which is really just blowing people's brains. It's just completely screwing up their brainwaves, where it's they have to compete with something, or if they see, somebody has this, or it's out of control. Because if you think 15 years ago, when the internet was first starting to break, people were getting online and they were just kind of showing who they are. It wasn't this animalistic, because these social media companies, they want people to be rabid and just, they like that. They sit with their arms crossed from the outside and look at these barbarians, look at these people selling their souls, look at these girls where, in the 80s, I mean, when everybody was young or a little kid, or the 90s or whatever, chicks were cool. Like, if you could see, I mean, you're a little kid, you can see stuff. It was cool. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
It was like, now it's like, it's being so desensitized. It's the most depressing thing because I just want to look at what Morbid Angel is doing, or what some of my friends, like Mike from I Hate God is doing.
Right.
And I got it. And it's like, I don't even ask for, I'm not complaining. I mean, I love women, but these chicks are completely naked. It's with not even private profiles. It's so you're giving everything away, and it's for what? It's
and it's
out of control, man.
These kids grow up with a camera in their face. And now we look at the history of child actors that grew up with a camera in their face. There's not a good history there.
Shout out to Danny Cooksey.
Who? Fuck is that?
No, we're gonna take this pause because this guy mentioned Danny Cooksey. So since Sam mentioned Danny Cooksey, now he's gonna explain who Danny Cooksey is, because
Danny Cooksey is he played originally, he was Sam in Different Strokes. He was a redhead.
Oh, okay.
But he was also the guy with the mullet in Terminator 2.
Okay.
And also he was in a band called Bad for Good. With the four, and in that band was this drummer Brooks Wackerman, who later on went to join Bad Religion and I believe Slipknot now. Actually no, but he did join them. And then there was this guy Thomas McRocklin, who is this 11-year-old little guitar player that's Steve Vai. He was like Steve Vai's protege. But all right, get back to
there was another. Who was the on the
shout out to Danny Cooks,
Partridge Family? Danny, is his name Danny? Bonaducci was a redhead, so that's why I thought
he's a terrorist. Bonaducci,
yeah,
he's a complete terrorist.
So I thought when you
Breaking
said that,
Bonaducci, he was like one of the he's. That's funny too. I remember Breaking Bonaducci too. He was like this like little steroid fucking redhead dude.
It was great.
Yeah,
it was great.
But back to your point.
I think you fleshed out my point very, very well. No, but it's just a kid growing up with a camera in their face. They have it, it's not, you don't have the same private moments. You don't have the same private fuck ups. You put on a show, and it distorts the way you grow up.
Well, imagine people had Instagram in the 90s.
Yeah.
It's like people say that, but it's like people ain't ready for that. People were not ready for that. And I think it's a good thing, because all that shit that happened in the 80s and the 90s, that wasn't for mass consumption. It wasn't for this public thing. Everything now is just for the public. Everybody's fronting on everything. Everybody, nobody's himself. Everybody has some secret weird fucking agenda. It's just completely destroyed civilization. It's like people don't even realize how far we are, because I mean, we're all guilty of it. I'm guilty of it. I have to check my emails, or
for sure.
I'm speaking to a friend in Sweden and I get stuck to, everybody gets sucked into the matrix like that. But after a while, it's like, what would be so wrong about just trashing it? Get rid of your pages. Fuck all that.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to more than anybody, but I honestly can't.
Yeah.
And it's a fact. It's like, I really have to have that, to just sell my music and have people have some kind of fucking hub, because for the last 5 years, people don't know where to find me. The name changed, this and that. I mean, I don't mind being under the radar like that, because to me, that's like any musicians I like, or like I grew up with, that's always been more intriguing to me. If somebody's taking 800 selfies, even now, it's like, even if I did have a Lamborghini and lived in a $9 million house, who the fuck wants to take 20 pictures a day, especially of yourself?
I thought you were going to say, who wants to live in Rocky?
Hey man, it's the commune is, the commune is the commune.
I thought that's where we were going. I wasn't sure.
Hey, listen,
shout out to Rob.
Shout out to RP.
But you're right. I remember being a fan of Metallica, as you and I were definitely, and One coming out, the video for One, I was like, holy shit, these people have faces, and you see them, and because they were such a mysterious fucking band.
No videos.
There was no video, which was unheard of, and then they dropped this one video that was like dark as fuck, and if anything, I think it helped them. Listen, different generation, different times, and all that other stuff, but that mystery for sure was great. Like I remember finally finding a copy of Cliff 'Em All and being like, whoa, like I mean, now you could just go and find it anywhere, but holy shit, when you actually found a VHS, you were like,
3 years ago, I found them. I was buying them one left and right, copies of VHS.
okay.
They were like $1 on eBay. So I wound up,
really?
I still have 7 or 8 on VHS if you need one.
Okay.
You can get them for $1 each. Which
I didn't know. Really?
Yeah.
I know you didn't you want to buy like somebody's magazine collection?
Always, yeah. I mean, I'm a freak like that. I mean, I lost a lot, but I had thousands and thousands and thousands of every issue of almost any magazine you can think of. I still have a lot. Anything from High Times to, real print. The real magazines like Crawdaddy and Cream are the best ever, and it's like, for culture and that kind of stuff, it's like people don't even really know. It's like, you know, now you get stuff like Rolling Stone, which is not a real magazine. And, and you just I'm really into stuff like that, like the real shit.
Yeah, because
real writers.
Your lyrics, like the lyrics, when you hear it, even with Bill too, it's like changing the channel on a TV.
It's similar to that because, we're probably the only guys who really literally throw all of our influences, whether it's good, bad, negative, retarded, senseless, everything we love is in our music. And that's always been like, the way I wanted to do it, where I'm not gonna, as a lyricist, I'm not gonna mention or not mention somebody who I want to mention because it's not flavor of the day. It's not. I never cared about that, and Bill didn't either. If we want to rap about Chuck Schuldiner, we did. If we wanted to mention John Joseph or the bass player from wherever, or Pusshead or Prong or whatever the fuck it is, we did, and we didn't really care. We never cared if people really got it.
No, but everyone listen, those lyrics are like pieces of like crumbs that all lead to this one bridge. And as soon as you walk over that bridge, you're like picking up pieces, and you're like, holy shit! You're like,
but not to interrupt you, but that's one of the things. That's like the bridge of like why we got to a certain level, but couldn't get to something really extreme. Because in order to get to that, you really have to get the references to really understand that. And it's really not for this time, honestly. Yeah. It's not, and I don't mean this in like some pretentious way of like it's so special, but if the world doesn't blow up or something happens, which it's going to, but let's say it doesn't, in 15
so
to 17 years, lyrics are gonna make a lot more sense. They're not for this time.
Yeah.
And 20 years ago when we were kids doing it, it was the same thing. Only now people kind of caught up to it, where it's like we were talking about all this apocalyptic shit. Everything,
Where are you going to be in 2002? Remember I said
where are you going to
that?
be in 2002 or 4, whatever it was, 2002, right?
Yeah.
That's like 30 years ago or something. It feels like it's, because you turn it around, it's going to be 20 years ago. And it's like that makes, and it doesn't, which is connected to a whole bigger, that's a whole other story, but it doesn't seem like it's that long ago. Right. It really doesn't seem that long ago. But, like I said, we never cared. We always put our influences in, even from, like if I think about the first thing I did on Wax, which was like the nonfiction record with, I believe, something to do with Search. He put out the first record, and if I listen to the lyrics, it's the same it's the same kind of thing. So it's like, it's still heavy slang where it's like people, I've met people like, hey, I love your music, but I'm a huge fan, but I don't understand what the fuck you're talking about, Yeah. And I'm like, all right, cool, but how do you get it then? How do you plug in and really get it if you don't really get it, And it's cool when people don't know, like, I'll get a message from Sweden and someone's like, hey man, I bought the Fat Mattress album, and I'm like, I'm trying to remember where they even got it from. It's like, oh, you mentioned that from Momentary Lapse of Reason in 2004, and I didn't know Fat Mattress was a band, and you called yourself Fat Mattress. And I was like, why did you do that? Why was, you know what I mean? And it's like, oh, I saw a record, and it's like, I didn't know it's a band, and oh, it's Noel Redding from Jimi Hendrix is in that band, and it's like, so you know, my whole gimmick is connecting the dots.
Yeah.
You know, I'll connect the dots to anything you could imagine, and it's going to make sense. It's gonna, So,
and I think
you know.
it for pop culture junkies like me, I think that's why I connected with it so much, even like back then. And I would tell people all the time back then, I'm like, fucking nonfiction, they're like the Pixies of hip hop. Like they just had this thing where like I don't know, like for that moment in time, they were the shit. Like they were
I
this,
appreciate it.
you know what I'm saying? So when you and Bill, like even to this day, like do you guys just try to outdo each other with like?
I mean, he makes a joke sometimes. He's like you know, like our brains are connected to something, or sometimes, or because you know, I'll do something and you know, I'll spit something and he'll be like, "Hey man," he's like, I just kind of mentioned that. I'm like, "Oh, it's annoying because you just said something. I said that last week." Or so sometimes it really, you know, the cross connections sometimes get weird.
Yeah.
You know, but it's not really trying to outdo each other. But I think,
Or just like you get into like you're like, oh shit, great reference. Now I got
no, absolutely. But I think Bill in general, I mean, we're different obviously, but I think in general he's more well-rounded. He's more of a normal guy in that sense, where he can paint something, but then he can just kind of, you understand exactly when he's being Mr. Normal.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I don't really
You have
fit
no
into
off
that.
switch.
I don't really, there's no real off switch. And sometimes I want there to be, where I
Yeah.
could say, okay, well, if I'm feeling aggressive, I just want to write aggressive. Or if it's like, you know, I could write moody stuff, but
Yeah.
you know, I don't really want to write. And it's like, you know, some people want to write about like a past relationship, or they write about a girl. It's like, not really. It's like, I'm just really into fucking carnage, and it's just being fucking, not necessarily just being brutal, like over your head constantly, but it's more poetic to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I don't mind if you don't understand it. It's better to me in a way, because next year you will, you know, if you listen to it 15 times, you'd be like, oh, okay. Like there's some light that like goes off. Like, okay, now I get it.
And that's
And it's like anything with anybody else. I mean, even like, you know, Ghostface, there's things
yeah,
he would
for
mention,
sure.
or even Rakim. I mean, Rakim, there's little things and nooks and crannies where if you listen to Follow the Leader now, it's even more painful because it's completely in your face. It's like the words are in your face. It's, you know.
That's when something's almost timeless, because people come back to your stuff a lot. And a lot of even, you know, one of the reasons why we wanted to have you back, and you're the first person
For sure.
we've ever had
Appreciate it.
back,
Yeah.
you know, for a second time, was, besides being one of the biggest episodes we had, it was the most commented, which is a different thing.
Yeah, people
there was a
fuck
mystery
with you hard on YouTube.
And so there's this thing that people come back to, where if you're so upfront about what you do and who you are and your lyrics and all that, people get it. Do they always come back? Not necessarily, but when people keep going back to that well and get something different,
Right.
you know, that's
I mean,
a
it's
lot of what I
dedication. You know, at the same time, I could have made my life a lot easier just by, you know, not caving in, but just conceptualizing stuff that like a more, I'm not going to say normal, because what's normal, but like the average person in Peoria, Illinois would relate to.
Sure.
Whereas I was just trying to constantly just create these, like, take a canvas and just splatter the canvas with like
Right.
a million different things that I want to say, you know, because I didn't really want to sacrifice anything in a verse, or just have 4 lines that didn't go anywhere. It didn't say anything. You know, it's like some people, they have 4 lines or 6 lines, and it's like, it's okay, but it's not really going anywhere. And then you're waiting for that thing that may or may not come, you know, where it's like, I'm not waiting for that. My punchline is at the beginning. It's not at the end. Everything is a punchline if you look at it that way. There's nothing more superior. There's nothing to wait for. Like if I do a verse, you're not waiting for the 10th line to get your jollies off, or
Right. To get the
you know,
payoff.
the whole thing is, for me, it's like, that's like, I enjoy doing it that way, because else there's no point, you know?
Do you feel like you could really like take this year, like look at someone like R.A., the rugged man, Long Island, basically just you know, he had a wild career to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, you know what, R.A., definitely an interesting career, an interesting career and a character.
But he basically parlayed and like, I don't know, like he, you know, he's been around for so long, and then he, for the most part, makes his real first record in 2013. You know, like, do you think, like, does something like that inspire you to where you're like, okay, fuck it, like, this is Lord Goat, it's gonna be 2020, I'm gonna put out like full length, and then from there,
Well, it's just cool. It's cool when you can kind of change everything up, because I don't really feel connected to any of that old stuff. I mean, I do because I wrote it.
Sure,
There's
sure.
a connection, but it doesn't really matter. I don't have to stick. I could really do anything I want. I don't really care so much about having to stick to my past. Something like what RA does, it's cool. I mean, with different artists,
for sure.
And he could put on makeup and wear a wig and put on a Art Carney outfit and rock it, and he's behind that, and I respect him for that. He's not for everybody, but I respect the guy.
But yeah, I mean, I'm just, like I said, I'm trying to think of what's going on in 2020 for you. I do want to mention real quick, because the last time I saw you perform, even though I left, but make pretend I did, was the Fat Beats 25th anniversary show, which also coincides with the single that you guys dropped, which was Tony's Killers. Which I really like the theme you told me for Tony's Killers, because we were having that conversation. I said move like a bunch of Mexicans with bandanas.
Right. And then I said, like, my influence for the title was basically those guys from Scarface. At the end, when they came up to his mansion, those dudes with long hairs, those guys were fucking
They were not playing around.
They're not playing around. I mean, I dig that song a lot. I think people sleeping on it, and I think
what was the
I don't think
sample?
it was properly promoted, whatever. But
what was this? What was the riff?
I don't know exactly, but I think I don't know. It could have been some psychedelic Greek guitar player. Could have been some like Russian band. It could have been anything groovy.
That's true, because it was like, if I felt like it was like the 60s, but did it feel like, I know obviously with whatever Fat Beats issues, did it feel like you guys headlined and it was basically everyone that put something out on Fat Beats? Did it feel like a high school reunion?
I mean, it did and it didn't. It was cool, I think, but then you kind of realize, like, wow, a lot of years kind of went by, and then it kind of didn't feel like it did. So it kind of felt like doing the old stuff in that situation was cool. Yeah, it was okay. It was an okay event,
Nice venue, Sony Hall.
Absolutely,
banging,
absolutely banging venue. The sound was good.
So the single, which I thought was good, like your single or Bill's single, but it was put out on a compilation, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to say about it. I didn't really know that song was going to be used for that, so I can't really say I was like super psyched about it. Like, I thought it was for another project, but cool. I mean, it's cool that it's on there. I think it's
a great song.
Might be too dope for the comp. That's just me being a dildo.
You'd rather it's somewhere else where it can be.
Yeah,
featured a
I mean,
little heavier.
listen, to me, it's an album track. Like when I wrote it, I wrote that for an album track.
No,
I didn't really write that to be some forgotten thing on some compilation that's not even promoted.
You kind of, I guess maybe like start working with Bill again on Septagram, right?
Yeah,
something like that, right?
I think so.
That record's dark.
Yeah, it's a dark record. It was a weird time. I think when we came together, it definitely sparked something definitely pretty wacky.
You were on 3 of them on that record.
Yeah, I think so. And, I mean, I like the record. I think it could have been mixed better, but again, that's just I think that's
the production felt like very like 70s horror.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the production was exploitational.
Yeah,
I definitely. Yeah, it's my thing. I definitely like the tracks that I'm on.
Omar Suarez, which is funny.
Yeah, definitely.
For anyone that knows.
I think it was kind of slept on, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it was.
It's it's like it's easy for me to say that about anything I do because it can be probably said about that, but I think Septagram was slept on for some reason. I'm not sure why.
It's anybody's guess when you talk about music or art.
Yeah, it's like you don't really know. It's like when we did those tracks, I was like, wow, these two things, me and him haven't been on a track in years.
Hell yeah.
So this shit is a fucking powerhouse. And, then it comes out and it's like, oh, okay. It's like, it's cool. And it's like, So you don't really know.
But
you don't really know.
We had on, same thing, like we had on completely different, but Taking Back Sunday, and we were talking to them when they got the old lineup back together. They were like, man, people are going to dig this. It's the first time we've been playing together in a long time. And then the first record was like, everyone was just like, eh. But by the second and third reunion record, they picked up, and that's how I feel. Because things
take time, because I think when that record came out, people people didn't really know we were working together again.
I
And it was,
didn't. I
you know,
didn't.
yeah, and so people didn't really know. I mean, we were hanging out and stuff. We just weren't really. We just didn't put anything out before then. It wasn't like, you know,
No
and it's
IG
like, you know,
story.
and it's
Yeah,
like, you know, I
it
know
wasn't
the guy for 30 years, so it's kind of like, it's just a brother, you know, like people fight, things get crazy sometimes. Sometimes you don't talk for a few years. You got to work stuff out. It's like, you know.
And what was that dynamic like being back? working with
I
Bill
mean,
again?
and I mean, you know, it's just like being back with a brother or family member that you haven't seen, and it's kind of bittersweet because it's like, what the fuck was that 10 years wasted for? What was that about? And it was 10 years. It was like, for what?
Yeah, it was.
Like for
what?
no reason,
Hmm.
you know. And there's like other outside forces trying to constantly, even now, harbor negativity into that because the relationship threatens so many different people for some reason. And it's a mystery to me.
Does it spark, like, at that point, like, you know, you're a creative guy, like we are, like, whenever I don't make shit, I feel like I'm dying. Like, I need to make shit. So at that point,
man, of course, because it's like, you know, and I've talked about this before. I've done other interviews where there was like a few years where I didn't put shit out, and fans were annoyed. My fans definitely weren't happy about it, and you know what? They were completely right, because from that standpoint, you know, it's like when I grew up, and even now, I have bands where I just, you know, I don't care so much about who broke up with who, what happened. I just want to hear an album. Get you, you know. So it's like, get your shit together. I don't give a fuck about the business. Get in the studio and make a record. I don't want to hear all that. So it's kind of, it's hypocritical because now it's like my situation. It's like, you know, there's X, Y, and Z that kind of goes on behind the scenes. People really don't understand. So it's like, you know, I'm a normal person. You know, I've been in relationships. I've had relationships that failed. And so when you take all that into account, it slows you down, especially if you're a creative person. And that's kind of what you fuel the reality around you to put into your music. So, you know, if I'm with somebody 6 years and break up with them, I don't want to do a fucking record.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck about, you know, some people, you know, I could be wrong. And some people say that's wrong because you need to take that motivation. You know, those people that want to like pump you up full of bullshit when that's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, go in the studio and use that aggression. Get the fuck out of here,
Save it
dude.
for the stage.
I was gonna,
Right, you know,
I was gonna
it's
say
like-
that'd be me because that's what I do.
Hey, dude, listen, it
That's
works.
when I write
it
the
works.
shit.
It works for some people,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying it hasn't ever worked for me, but it's not really. That's not really me. It's like
I'm like,
you
yo,
know.
spit on my face so I can go write a song.
Wow.
If Sam's in a bad mood ever, I'm just like, just go write a song about it.
Yeah. No,
Yo.
I get it, man.
Straight up. But so that kicks it off, man, because from Septagram to fucking Heavy Metal Kings and then to Cannibal Hulk for last year, where how'd you guys run across Stu Bangers? Because he's from Massachusetts, right?
Yeah. I mean, Stu's been around doing his thing.
He
He's
has.
just, you know, and Stu's just like on the come up, and he's on his grind major. I mean, the guy's like a workhorse to the point it's like, you did 12 beats tonight?
Yeah.
I mean, like, yo, I love your beats,
Yeah.
but why?
Yeah.
No. I mean, you know, it's Stu's great, and you know, he just keeps coming out with shit, and there's really not many producers that are really putting out the amount of stuff he's putting out, where like 98% of it are all bangers.
Yes.
It's not like
he does a lot of like Instagram like clips, so I hit play and it's like I feel the same way. I'm like, how is this guy like constantly making,
because he's on a rampage,
Yeah.
and like, I guess when you're a producer and you're on a rampage like that, and the creativity is just like, it's astonishing. So you can sit up and make, you know, 8-9 beats in a row, and when you're inspired, they come faster. Things just come faster. It's even lyrically, it's like anything. So he's in a really good zone as far as being inspired, and like, you know, he works with different kinds of artists too. He doesn't just work with super brutal, you know, he works with guys that are doing like some new bebop stuff and like new fucking, he's into some different stuff.
Yeah.
So
what,
me and I was going to talk about like me and him.
yeah.
We just did like 7 songs, and probably have to finish 2 more. They're going to get mastered, and you know, the EP is going to be pretty much done with Stu. So that's going to be
9?
pretty cool. It's got, I think, 8 songs.
8 songs.
8 songs in total. So it's originally it was going to be an EP, but you know, some of these guys put 3 songs on an EP. They do this fancy artwork. That's cool, but I still feel like, you know, that it's like
more.
it's being a little cheap.
Yeah.
Even though people want that now. People, it's almost like fans want to spend the most money they possibly can and get the least. It's like some weird
Those are good fans.
it's some weird fetish. It's like, wow, this cover is so beautiful.
Yeah.
And there's 2 songs on it and they just spent $50, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, I guess, but
10 songs? How about 3?
you know, it's like, I mean, the days of making 16-song albums are over. I'll never make a long album again.
Right.
You know, Electric Lucifer
That's
was
what-
19
yeah.
songs,
It was a lot.
which is 2 albums
Yeah.
on one, and a lot of shit got kind of flushed in the middle of where people didn't really get it.
Sure.
I could have stretched that out if I really wanted to be a savage, but you know what? After not having a record out for so long,
that makes sense.
I
Probably
knew
read it
people were going
right.
to say,
Yeah.
this guy, he better not put out 9 songs. This cheap fuck. Like
Yeah.
they're gonna, and they'd fucking hate you, and,
Right.
and like they'd be annoyed.
Yeah.
So it's like I wanted to do that for the fans. Like, okay, listen, it's a double album. But it's not. You know, I mean, it was on vinyl, but it's like as a CD, it's like 19 songs. So
Did for Cannibal Hulk, did Bill tell you like kind of like what the whole thing was?
no, it's just kind of the vibe. It's like the vibe is there. It's like when the vibe is there, you don't really even have to talk about it. It's just like,
Because Anton Singleton's a good.
yeah,
like-
yeah.
I'm like reading that, and I was just like, "Why does that sound familiar?" And then like I was like, "Oh shit!" I'm like, "Big Lurch." I'm like, that makes all the sense in the
Exactly.
world.
You know, it's like, I mean, Big Lurch. You know, I want
Shout
to
out to Big Lurch.
you know, I wanted to do the Big Lurch gimmick a couple years ago. I didn't. So I mean, it's cool he did.
Yeah.
Because it's like if it's just funny. It's like, you know, with him, it's just like fun. It's like, you know, we might be writing, you know, different verses for the same song, and there'll still be references where it's like, come on, like we're saying the same, like, but not in a bad way. It's just
Yeah.
like, you know, he might say, you know, Anton Singleton. I'm saying something about, you know, this guy has a fridge and he's like, he's cooking up his girlfriend. We're referencing it in a different way, but sometimes they're exactly the same. It's just we're saying it, and a lot of it is just us saying it different. Sometimes if you listen to it, we're saying the same exact thing, but it's so different the way we're even saying it. So, and I think people appreciate that.
For
Yeah,
sure.
so it's- 'cause, you
It
know,
got received very well. Like Cannibal Hulk made a lot of fucking best of the year for that year. And you were like on like 3 or 4 of the songs, right?
something like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was-
so, like-
I mean, I thought the material was good. I mean, I like it. Everything sounds right, and I think people understood it. I mean, of course, more people should know about it. It's like anything else,
Yeah.
but it did its thing, and I
It did its
think I think at the time for what he was trying to do, I think it's exactly what he wanted. And sometimes you put an album out and you're like, oh, this is cool. I want to do this. I want to do that. I think he was happy. Like it came out exactly the way he wanted it to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's cool.
Even like the
you know?
cover, like all the imagery.
Exactly. All the covers, the different covers, down to the stickers, down to the actual vinyl, down to everything you want. Like he's doing a toy for it. He's got,
Yeah.
like an action figure. So that's cool. You know, and he's a fan. It's not like like, you know, all these guys, like, you know, you got these young kids that put out these comic book things. Like some guy, like, you know, just put a record out 6 months ago, ripping off Cannibal Hulk. The guy put it some hip hop fucking jerk off, some New Jack, steals the whole idea
Yeah.
of the Hulk and puts out his own thing where it's like, come on, man, we already did that. It's like,
Really?
yeah, it's like, I'm not going to mention names. It's like, just like some New Jack,
Okay.
you know, it's like a Hulk cover, green vinyl, same gimmick. It's like, yo, dude, come on. But that's the shitty thing about hip hop,
Yeah.
you know, especially when you have these like young knucklehead kids who don't know shit. Like they got into hip hop 3 years ago. And you know, they have 10 grand to spend. They don't know what to do with it. So, oh, let's make vinyl. You have to put good music. Like, think about the music you might put on the vinyl.
Sure.
People don't do that now.
Right.
It's like, oh, let's go to Pirate Press and let's get OBIs. Ooh, you know.
Yeah.
Wow.
My mistake, to keep it real, is, and I'm happy, like Griselda, they were rocking the OBIs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to do that 10 years ago and 15 years ago.
What is OBI?
OBI is the strip on vinyl with the Japanese lettering. If you ever see a record,
Okay.
you know, it's in Japan, they all have the strips. And it's like for record collectors, it's like methamphetamine to see that. It's like
Griselda did that?
Griselda in hip hop, they started doing the OBI strips. Not really them. They had crews of graphic designers. They don't, you know, they leave it up to some kids they hire that just come up, and they got lucky because their graphic designers designed some serious fire for them.
Yeah.
But, you know, I wanted to do the OBI 15 years ago. Nobody wanted to do that. They're like, oh, why would you want to do that? It's like, I'm like, what do you mean why? Because it looks like a fucking Iron Maiden record.
Yeah.
With
cool.
Why wouldn't we want to do that?
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to do it. Now, everybody and their mother does OBI strips, but now you can't even do it now. It's like, because, you know, these kids bury something into the ground so fast. It's like so played out. where something so cool as the strips, it's like,
Yeah.
What can you tell people, because I mean I kind of know but I don't know who Debbie Abono is, because she was so I guess on Bill's record Pulp Fiction, right?
Yeah,
it's got the four or five songs. So there's a song just like Anton Singleton. Like I love, because I'm like reading it and meeting Ron Grimaldi. He's like, I read that. Ron loved it. He's like, I read that and I laughed. He's like, I fucking love these guys.
Ron would get that. He's probably the only guy in New York. And a couple people would get that.
So it's a song on the album.
Debbie Abono was a manager for Possessed. And a bunch of these San Francisco thrash bands in the 80s, Death Angel, just a bunch of different bands. She was an older woman, and I think her daughter dated one of the guys from Possessed back then too. Just useless information. At the time, when I was 12, I was doing a zine, and I found her information. So being a savage, there's no computers and none of that. Everything was just cold messaging, cold calling, just going for it. So I reached out to her. I told her, I said, hey, listen, I'm doing a zine. And at the time I had interviews with everybody from Obituary, Sepultura, Sacred Reich. I mean, it was a serious issue, Testament.
Yeah.
And she was like really nice to me. She's like, listen, what could I do to help you? And I was like, are you kidding me? Like,
That's so cool.
A fucking sweetheart, dude. Yeah. I was like, well, can you maybe, hook up? Could I talk to Exodus maybe? She's like, yeah. She's like, what's your number? I said, how about, this guy? Yeah, no problem. Just, and through Debbie, I would talk to these people. It's like, when you're 12 years old, and you're speaking to guys from Exodus or, Testament or, certain people, like most people don't give a shit about, but she really hooked up a lot of stuff, and she was never weird, and she was super cool.
Yeah.
So she's legendary in the thrash scene. If anybody knows about those bands, which, most people, even if they do, they wouldn't, it's like it's some kind of rabbit hole. Like these days, it seems like people should know about Debbie Abono, but they don't. So it's kind of.
But people like Bill still like keep it. They throw it out there.
Well, it's cult. It's like Debbie Abono was cult to me. She was because I would cut out of school in 7th grade and call Debbie Abono. Like I'm talking to her. So it's like a whole other world. Like I ruined my scholastic fucking career at that point. My life in school to sit home and get demos. And wait for the postman and just like talk to people and call John Tardy on his lunch break when he's at work, So it was that kind of stuff. So Debbie Abono was like a serious piece in the puzzle when I was trying to do my zine and like trying to do print and journalism and stuff, because I was deep into that shit when I was a little kid,
Yeah.
I heard she
hip hop
was
too. And
how come that's something you never really kept up with as far as doing more of that or even doing a podcast?
It's like, it's like I've wanted to do that over the years. I have friends that done zines like, hey, let's do a zine. People don't buy magazines than the internet. I did a website, an anonymous one about 5 years ago with my ex. It's like, it's like, it's something that I might want to do in the future. But, the whole art of like, printed magazines is, it's pretty scary.
But even you did like interview related, you could always do a podcast. Yeah. You could always do like noecho.net,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it would be the same.
Yeah.
The same thrill it was. I mean, because I think the mystique is taken out a lot because, back then there really was no internet. You had to have a phone and you had to have access to long distance.
Yeah.
Which was unheard of.
And is expensive.
Oh, it's definitely expensive. So
you had to have a long distance plan.
If I couldn't do long distance, I would figure out how to like torture and harass Dan Loker.
Yeah.
Because he's from Queens. So like somebody gave me his number. So I called Dan and I'm like, what's up, dude? And it's like a woman. And it's like, is Dan there? It's like his mom. She's like really sweet. And she's like, no, he went to the park. I'm like, okay. She's like, just call back. It's no problem. So I call back. Oh, he's still in the park. Like, this is going on for hours. I said, hey, listen, I feel weird calling you back. I said, just have Dan give me a call. She's like, honestly, it's no problem. Call him back. He'll be home. Cool. This is the 5th time I called Dan Loker's house. The 5th time he picks it up. And he's like, hey, dude. He's like, I was just in the park, man.
Yeah, I heard.
I was like, no doubt, man. I was like, but, that's the kind of shit it was back then. It wasn't like.
So when Heavy Metal Kings play with Nuclear Assault at St. Vitus. Were you there?
Absolutely.
For sure, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, do you tell Dan these stories?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, over the years, I have a friendship with Dan now, so it's not as weird. But of course, I'll bring it up to him. Like, hey, dude. I'm like, hey, dude, do you remember that?
Yeah.
He has no recollection.
Remember you were at the park?
He has no recollection about that.
Been to the park lately?
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, we did that show. That was cool. I mean, we hung out with John and Dan, and Dan's a friend. So, Dan and his girl Heather. Definitely, I would consider them friends. Good people.
Cool. Yeah. So the collection, to bring it back to like the stuff you were talking about. So the guy that wrote Murder in the Front Row. Did you watch that movie yet?
I want to see it.
Me too.
I haven't seen it.
I know Cinema Arts Center did a thing, but he basically was just like a dude that he's like, I just never threw anything away, and I just feel like if you're one of those people. So what he did was, I guess he hooked up with a director, and I guess between the two of them, they make this movie and this book.
Absolutely.
I
mean, the thing is, what I wanted to do, unfortunately, I couldn't do it because of an old relationship where this person, without, basically took everything I worked on, what we were just talking about, for the issue, and basically threw it in the incinerator, got rid of everything. So,
like the real incinerator?
Yeah. Because I lived in the projects at that point. So she would basically, we got into a fight, and she took everything I worked on because everything was pre-internet. So for a layout, you would have to use a typewriter, cut and paste a picture, then go Xerox that, and then take white out again, and then re-Xerox the page 3 times before you could even staple to get it front and back. And then you might even glue the sides together. I mean, we're talking serious. This is before Kinko's and Pips and I lived in the projects. I was lucky I could buy a fucking sandwich.
Yeah.
But anyway, long story short, the whole deal with the zine was, Bill was going to help me with that. And, maybe his dad was going to pay for it. Like, he's like, don't worry about that. My dad's going to pay for it. Of course, I did all the legwork. His dad didn't want to give up a penny for it.
Yeah.
Even after he knew that I did that's a whole other story. But, really, when you're a younger guy and you're a little kid and you haven't, just don't have money, it's like you can't really print anything.
Yeah.
So it was very frustrating because the level of shit I was doing back then, it's like Borvoy Kurjan, who does Blabbermouth, like he got in touch with us, which was bizarre, and he was like, he's like, I'm putting together the new Atheist record. We knew Borvoy he was a writer, years ago, Metal Forces. He was Sepultura's manager. I mean, this guy was, he was doing big shit back then. And, he was a mentor to me. So, I went up to his office, and this was right when the first Atheist album came out, Piece of Time. And, he's like, oh, check this out. And he pulls the curtain, he pulls the sheet off, and it's like a 12-foot by 12-foot painting. And it's like, it was just little things like that, like really surreal, stuff like that. Cause I wasn't even 13. I was maybe 13. And he, it's like he respected my writing, which meant a lot back then. It meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
So, by hooking up with that, he would say, okay, he's like, how about if you want to interview Mile from Creator? I said, fuck yeah. You know what I mean? He said, oh, call Noise Records. Just give him a call. So I would do that. I'd call Noise Records in Manhattan. I had a young voice. It wasn't like my voice was developed. I was a kid. And they were like, what did you want to do? I'm like, yeah, I'm calling to interview Mile from Creator. Like, when's he going to be there? And like, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, Borvoy told me to call. What's up? Like, when are we setting this up? So you have to.
Were you assertive back then too?
I was, but I learned the hard way because you had to be assertive on the phone. Because the minute you buckle, you're getting hung up on.
Yeah.
And there was no internet. Right. So everything was fucking cold, dude. If like they didn't like the tone of your voice, click. It didn't matter. So it's like you had to sell yourself and you had to really, let them know, like, yo, this is like the real deal. There was no internet. There was nothing to share. There was no anything. If you wanted something, it was legwork. You had to buy the magazines. You had to like, that's all there was, So yeah, I went up and interviewed Mile from Creator. It was like a Saturday morning. I called Bill 8 a.m. He's like, what do you, with an attitude, what are you calling me 8 a.m? I'm like, yo, get dressed, bro. Like, you know the attitude with me for? He's like, what do you mean? He's like, what the fuck, dude? I'm like, yo, dude, we're going to interview Mile from Creator today, bro. I said, get the fuck dressed, homie. And I hung up on him. And he called me back. He was like, wow. I was like, yeah.
That's funny.
And that was it. And we went, and it was just, it was like some rogue shit. And like we went up there,
The zine, like,
it's called Graphic Violence, by the way. That was the title at the time.
and where are they?
They were never printed. That's the problem. They were never professionally printed. I did the layout, but they were never printed in bulk.
Yeah, but there's
Not really, nah. There's a few pages, and it's like my ex destroyed everything. It's like I'm not gonna I don't want to make the podcast about her. Like, it's pretty screwed up. And like,
shout out to your ex.
Shout out to my ex, one of them at least.
You mentioned the incinerator, but I didn't know if there was other just pieces around.
Nah,
that
dude. Nah.
Now, so basically, like, instead of a fanzine, what people do, like, you look at like Netflix, Metal Evolution or Hip Hop Evolution. Like, these dudes, like people like Sasha Jenkins, and like they make these fucking amazing, like really detailed. Absolutely. I mean, I guess it's almost like a fanzine, the way they break down, especially Hip Hop Evolution and Metal Evolution. That dude Sam Dunn, like all these guys are just like.
I like Sam. Some people don't. I don't mind Sam.
Really?
Yeah. For some reason, I don't know. Like, I don't know why. I think
is it because you like Barry?
I don't know exactly what it was. I think it's just Sam Dunn. It's just he's just a metal guy. I think maybe on one of those shows that he did, or one of those things where he was categorizing stuff.
Okay.
And and you know how people are. It's like, that's not Polish black metal. That's doom, and that's not.
He said Nawambum.
Exactly. So I think he's cool. I'm just saying I noticed that some people. But listen, so everybody has.
You figure like someone who is in our age, if they're like 18 and they're flipping through Netflix, and like some people might watch some of those episodes and they're gonna find those records and they're gonna want to look for them. Some kids may not, but other people will. Just like the way there's certain things that just like keep this music alive. I think podcasts. Anytime I hear a podcast and someone talks about fucking a band that I don't even remotely like, I'm just like, oh, maybe I'd like to hear Mayhem right now. Like, I don't know, because we're talking about it.
Of course.
I'm interested. These series are just super important for like music fans, and I think some kids just really gravitate towards music. I like your fucking son. I met him yesterday.
Absolutely.
Goddamn band, Secret Tapes.
Absolutely.
Like,
right there, Secret Tapes.
Fucking phenomenal band. I went to go see him at AMH.
Tell me about this band, because I know you went, and it's your son.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had time before band practice yesterday. His son was playing early enough. I met Elijah from Secret Tapes, and you never know. What do I know what they're going to sound like? I heard clips on Instagram, and it's so good. It's like 90. It has such a 90s shoegaze feeling, with like a feel of like certain bands, like the band Citizen, which are like younger kids. Very melodic, kind of dreamy. The lead player, Vic, really good. His son's great singer. The new bass player is great. So, I mean, how proud of you?
Yeah, listen, it's awesome to see. I think it took him a couple years to get that going, and I think it's awesome, man. Without being biased, I mean, because, I'm a music freak, I would never really say, I wouldn't really endorse something musically. I don't care who or what it is. If it's not really, I'm just like that. But, no, it's good for what it is, man. I think I was surprised because I think for a couple years, like, I didn't know he can sing. And that's really interesting because when you don't really know somebody can, that has talent where it's not really, like when he was younger, we'd play Kiss and, all this stuff and, but I didn't know that, he'd be like a vocalist or something that,
and like a singer, cool. Like he could sing, like it's, they're technically like an indie rock band. Like that's definitely what you would classify them as. They got some great like riffs, and the effects on the vocals just were really good.
Yeah. You wrote me like,
the
band is really good, like legit good.
Yeah.
And it's weird because I had an impression that I didn't even know that I had, which was someone's son's band would be bad.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that I had that impression in my head until you said like unsolicited,
Yeah.
good, legit, good. And then I
Yeah.
was like, oh, it's good.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah. And then you wrote me the same explanation. You
Like,
yeah.
I was, as a 41-year-old man watching, like, a 27-year-old
Yeah.
younger musician, I was like, they're
is good.
really good. And it's just songwriting. I love songwriting, and I think the songwriting really came across. And the kid that he plays with, the other kid, Vic, the shorter kid,
Yeah.
he's great. He's like, you always need that secret weapon, and I think he's that secret weapon. He plays like really cool leads, great
Yeah,
backup
definitely,
singer. So.
Definitely.
Nice.
Definitely. I mean, I'm looking forward to what
They're
what they do.
They're gonna let Dead drop a 16 on it.
Definitely not. That'd be a nightmare.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And now my dad on the hook.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do that. That'd be a nightmare. I hate mixing rap with anything. You know that.
Me too. We
Yeah.
had that discussion.
Had that discussion.
We've talked about it too, except for Rage Against the Machine.
Well, Rage is
Somehow
different because
It's okay.
Why is Rage different? Maybe because Zach was a hardcore singer and he.
There's some of that. I think there's a lot of differences. But I will say, I mean, I think it's great that they did that. They're not one of my favorites, but I think Rage was dope because they had great production and great mastering.
Yeah.
And when you have those two elements and you know where to put everything, it's going to sound good no matter what. So like when you have Tom's riff, it's like Jimmy Page Sabbath thing, but it's not really too loud where it's like you're still hearing, what Zach is saying, like in the rhythmic thing. I think it works.
And the rhythm section.
The rhythm
like,
section.
Exactly.
If it
is
wasn't
really,
that, it wouldn't work. It just somehow they all line up, and when they
Absolutely.
hit, it's
And
I don't know why.
and just like the band Idols, what I realize is repetition is amazing.
Yeah.
So they repeat these phrases that get stuck in your head by the fourth, fifth time.
Absolutely.
So the same thing with Idols. Like Idols is like a newer band and like they're abrasive, but people know all the words. And when I look at their lyrics, it's just basically verse, chorus, and they repeat it like 100 times. And the dynamics, like I just feel like Rage was just like a stadium band from day one. They just have these dynamics, and like Zach, I think is just like he's just beating people over the head with that stuff. And it wasn't until like the third record that I think that they experimented with straying from that formula, which was like. Quiet.
Yeah, quiet, loud.
Yeah. And then that outro was always like a chant.
Yeah.
And that's
Perfect.
it. And like, it's like, oh, you guys did the same song 10 times, but I love it.
Yeah, definitely.
But I don't even feel that. Like, we were talking about like, what did we say? Like when like, Public Enemy, like if you don't have a DJ, if Terminator X ain't there, I don't.
You don't need a guitarist.
I don't want to hear a guitar player. I want to hear fucking records. I want to hear a
Bomb
DJ.
Squad.
Yes, I want to hear the Shockley brothers.
Yeah, I don't really want to hear Glassjaw with a DJ. Like some bands are.
Yeah.
I mean, like I think at some point, like it was starting to get to that level where people are mixing hip hop with some weird stuff.
In the late 90s, every band had a DJ.
Yeah.
No, but even now, I feel like there are newer people that grew up listening to everything, and they're like, I want to incorporate everything.
Which could be good. It could be a nightmare.
Yeah.
Really.
Our favorite, Post Malone.
Oh boy. Oh man, don't get me started.
Well, I mean, he blessed Ozzy, letting him get that feature.
Oh, dude. Okay, so most people know my feelings because I'm pretty adamant about them. About why Ozzy. I'm sure most of you probably saw that and were probably like, "What the fuck is that?" It's like, why would Ozzy be blindfolded and sedated to allow that smelly bastard to basically write songs for him and have his buddies put Ozzy in the studio like a puppet and do what they tell him to do? I don't understand that. And why Sharon would be so horny to let that happen, being she controls every breath of oxygen he takes. It's like...
It's happened a lot.
It's happened
What's
a lot.
money? Listen, it's money.
You think
and
you
that's
want to do a
that.
fucking reality show?
Listen, he didn't want to do the reality show, but I think he was happy with that. He got $35 million. Eventually, he had to shut it down.
Yeah.
But you're propping Ozzy on the stage. He doesn't know if he's going up there with
He doesn't know.
ex-members of Metal Church or the first bass player from Agnostic Front,
Yeah.
or if he's going up there with
Post Malone.
Heavy D.
Yeah.
Rest in peace. I'm just saying he doesn't know what's going on. So to put him on stage like that, that's real some manipulative bullshit.
Yeah.
It is weird, especially like watching like the Grammys. Like, so I watched some of the Grammys and he was there, and like he has that condition now that he came out with Parkinson's.
Which sucks. I mean, my uncle passed away from Parkinson's in '82.
It's no joke for sure.
It's definitely no joke.
You see him being affected by it, and he's talking about his upcoming tour. And I'm looking at Sharon going like, you need to be like Mick throwing in the towel for Rocky.
But the thing is, when he did No More Tears, he wanted to stop touring. And
No More Tours.
That was what,
91?
92?
Yeah.
So he was over it then, and it's like she kept pushing him and pushing him and pushing him, where he's talking about tours now. It's like, dude, nobody wants to see you because that's been ruined.
Yeah.
So if she puts him on stage one more time, people are going to wish anal cancer on her again.
Yeah.
Because that's the way the world works now.
And it's almost like a double-edged sword, because in one way, as self-destructive as Ozzy was, she extended his career in a good way. And then on the other side, she's someone who wants to be on the fucking View.
It's a little bit, absolutely. It's a little bit of a rabbit hole with that, because you could always say, well, gee, I mean, if Sharon wasn't there, she saved him. And it's like, that's a shortcut to really thinking about that situation.
Yeah.
Because Ozzy would have been successful no matter what he did.
Yeah, no, but she's, what I'm saying is
but
he's
she's
also...
his wife. No, listen, dude, she's his wife. She's his wife. Of course.
Yeah.
She helped him, and I'm not denying that. She definitely helped him.
But then her personality comes out more. So what happens is like where they cross, it's helpful.
But the guy is sick. Listen, the guy's sick. Yeah. And he's only saying now he's talking about Parkinson's. He's had that for a few years.
Yeah, for sure.
It's only just came out.
Yeah,
now.
yeah. Right. You could tell there was something.
You can tell,
completely.
and he was on all this medication. When he was doing the show, he was shaking. That's why he was taking the medication. Because they were experimenting with different things because he had Parkinson's towards the end of the show. And it's like only now they're bringing it up because they know he's older now. You can't milk the cow anymore.
Yeah. Sounds like, the last 6 months you had a lot going on, like, maybe even more than what's been going on the past couple of years, but you got a lot of irons in the fire, with different projects.
Absolutely.
Let us know what you're up to now. We were talking about an engineer you were working.
I mean, right now, me and Stu are almost done with the EP. It's like 7 or 8 songs. It's kind of like in the mastering stages. Some people are going to be on it. The usual cast of characters, couple of surprises. So far, I think it's really brutal. I mean, I like it so far. I think it's interesting. I'm not just saying that because I wouldn't even bother even putting it out and promoting it if I didn't think it was actually good.
Roughly, what do we think? Like spring?
I think a little before that.
Cool.
I think a little before that, hopefully. Got Bill on there, Vinny Paz, Recognize Ali. He's like a newer guy, but he's dope. We got Nems.
Nice.
Good old Nems, the Coney Island bully. Shout out to Nems.
Yeah.
Shout out to Vinny Paz. Shout out to Bill. Yeah, man. I'm also my boy Mike. He's an engineer, but we're definitely getting it in, and he's very good. So I mean, shout out to Mike Mavs. It's like you need a good engineer. You need to work with good people who work fast, who understand what you're trying to do, and want to make you sound the best. It's a little different when you have a band, rather than it's just a singular voice and it's just a singular concept. So me and Mike are definitely it sounded good because stuff I've put out in the past, for some bizarre reason, I've always encountered somebody fucked up the mastering, something, So it's like right now we're getting everything right. So it's a good feeling if I could listen to my vocals and actually like them, actually like the way they sound.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So we got that. Me and Q Unique, we're doing an EP right now. We're about 4 or 5 songs in. That's gonna be a little shorter than the Stu thing.
Friend of the show.
Yeah.
No doubt. Shout out to Q. Yeah, I mean that's pretty brutal. Me and Little Vic. We also have an EP coming out.
That's a Little Vic with Jet, actually with Q Unique and Jedi Mind Trick. He
doubt.
opened. Yeah.
No doubt. Little Vic is doing this thing. Little Vic just opened for Benny from Griselda. He just opened up for him in Philly.
Yeah.
I want to say the other night, and Vic's doing his thing. Vic's going hard right now. So me and Vic have a project called Murder Machine, and we're about halfway done with that. That's gonna be pretty brutal. Some
That's
surprises.
the name of.
It's a group. It's just Murder Machine.
Nice.
It's just featuring me and him. Yeah, and a lot of I'm working on my solo album, and I'm trying to get that stuff done. So it's just constant. It's just constantly working right now. Constantly throwing stuff out.
How's the bass?
Bass is good. I'm playing. Jamming with these guys. Come to Grief. A lot of people probably don't know who they are. Just some really brutal shit we're working on. We have a different project that's not hip hop whatsoever, and I don't even want to give it away yet. But it's something else I'm working on. That's just live instrumentation. That's just going to be completely brutal and sad, depressing.
Yeah.
So
I'm
excited.
He smiles. You see how happy he just got saying it's going to be brutal and depressing.
But no, it should be cool. So I mean, shout out to the homies in Grief. Shout out to Jonathan. They just put a new record out, and everybody should check it out. It's brutal.
So I mean, that's a stacked 2020 right there.
Yeah. Also, shout out to Warhorse, and a shout out to Terry. You should definitely check out those two bands because they're definitely ferocious. And yeah, I mean, I'm working with those guys, and I don't know when that's going to come out, but those guys are up in New Hampshire, so I'm going to head up there, and we're just going to start writing and knock something out.
Do you ever have because you have a lot of projects that you just mentioned. Do you ever get like writer's block?
Yeah, sometimes.
What do you do?
It's not necessarily a block. It's just, you really, as a writer, you're just really trying hard not to repeat yourself.
Oh, for sure.
And it's like after 90,000 verses and this and that, you really want to try that. So there's times where it's not necessarily a writer's block, but I might think I've just thought of something that's going to change the world. I'm like, I just fucking used that 3 years ago, or I just might have used that on someone's record. Yeah. So you're really constantly trying to backtrack and make sure you didn't use that already or somewhere. So it's like, you just want to make sure that doesn't happen as much as possible,
Yeah.
So, I mean, some people do it and don't care. I really try to make that a habit, where you don't want to really repeat yourself. So,
speaking of Vinny Paz and features, one of my favorite features that you did was on the Visions of Gandhi record. Do you remember that one? Mm-hmm. It's like Kubla Kai. What do you remember of that? Like, how'd that come about? Because I know the group was all on there, but I think Bill and Sabak were on another track.
Well, I think originally we were all going to be on one track, and I don't remember what track those guys were on. Without me. Okay, The Wolf. I think I was on that too. And I think Vinny got the idea that I would sound different, which is better on this other beat that he had. So, I mean, I didn't know he was going to do that. I thought it was just we were all on the same track. And then when it came out, somebody told me, like, hey, you're on a joint with Tragedy.
Yeah.
And it's a banger. I was like, oh, dope.
For sure.
And I was happy because when they took my vocals on that, they didn't just throw it on there and just, walk away. Like, they crafted the song to make it really sound right. And to this day, that's, I think, vocally, I think I sound probably the best I've ever sounded on that particular collab. Because every record you do, every collab you do, you have different hands touching it. You're going to sound different on every record, for better or worse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that might be my favorite Jedi Mind Tricks record. Brutal, for sure.
Yeah, I like that one. I think everybody, I think Tragedy's verse was dope. Obviously, Vinny's was dope. Yeah, I like that.
How'd you, being, they're from Philly, how did, the nonfiction guys actually meet up with Vinny?
I want to say at one of the Rocksteady cruise parties, like one of those anniversaries, and we didn't know those guys. We knew of them. We knew and vice versa. But I think it was one of those Rocksteady anniversaries, and we just started building, and we just started talking right there, and we just kind of kept in touch, and we just started working together. But I'm pretty sure it was a Rocksteady anniversary. I don't remember what year or which one it was.
Yeah, that's cool because I mean, if
definitely
it just completely made sense.
Yeah, for sure. And Vin, it made sense because like Vin is into like all sorts of bizarre and psychedelic pop culture.
Yo, he does. He actually. So I follow him on Instagram, and even like the stories, like he'll drop. I love his album mentions. So he always has the anniversaries of like, you know, like I'll go on.
That's his
there.
gimmick. Absolutely. It's a good gimmick, you know. Yeah, I mean, you know, people like to put their favorite records, of course. He likes to talk about his favorite records that were definitely influential to him. Yeah. Which is cool. And I think most people who read it, you know, they probably share some of the sentiments, because if you're talking about, you know, an old Grand Poobah record, or, you know, some like old hip hop stuff like that. I mean, he gives a pretty good, you know, yeah, I like when he does that.
Yeah, man.
It's a good gimmick.
But then he'll also throw in like a Fugazi picture, you know what I'm saying? Like he's very super
well-rounded.
I mean,
sometimes we have picture wars, you know, which is, it's like, you know, I'll send them like, you know, the most obscure thing you could imagine. I mean, like, you know, Carnivore rehearsing in like Ace London Studio in like Marine Park, Brooklyn, you know, like he's just like, yo, dude. So we'll go back and forth, but you know, he posts some pretty crazy shit too, you know.
Or like that screenshot from like Leprechaun in the Hood.
Well, I mean, who hasn't abused that? I mean, that screenshot, you know, that Leprechaun scenario with the bong, you know, that's like one of the first pictures that went viral and blew up. It's yeah. Because I remember seeing that and I didn't know where the fuck it was from, so I was like, yo. Where is that from with the leprechaun holding the bong? Like they're in the hood. I didn't know.
Should have asked me right away. Would have told you.
Yeah, dude, I didn't know.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
Yeah.
But
you know who to call now.
But it killed me.
Yeah, it gets so good.
It hurt. Like it hurt my heart. You know what I mean? I don't give a shit about the movies. Yeah. But that scene, it was burned into my aura. It was just so brutal, dude.
So I'm going to ask you a really random question, because you and I are both Tatum O'Neal fans.
Which like 90% of your listeners are like, who the fuck is Tatum O'Neal? But these guys are weirdos.
Yeah. So, Tatum O'Neal or Heather Graham in their prime?
Oh, damn, dude. Oh, Heather Graham anytime.
Yeah?
Yeah, like, because Tatum O'Neal was just like the chick I just want to smoke 10 blunts with.
She woulda.
Yeah, it's like, you know, Roller Girl is different, you know?
Yeah.
It's like Roller Girl is like...
I feel like we could walk down this block and have a pretty decent possibility of running into Tatum O'Neal. You know,
around here, definitely.
Yeah,
like going to the store, like buy blunts, like she's in there.
not Heather Graham though. Heather Graham, like
definitely not. Heather Graham is definitely, you know, Heather Graham is. I think she's different than Tatum. Tatum in the 70s and the 80s. You know, she had a legendary. Kind of a legendary rep, you know. Her dad was Ryan O'Neal.
Sure.
There's all sorts of weird shit in the tabloids. You hear weird stuff about her ODing, and you know, like it's just complete stuff. You know, like her dad's, you know, wife wanting to have a threesome with her when she was 14 on her period.
I didn't know the period part, but she had a wild life.
It's strange. I mean, you know,
the dating kind. Yeah.
No, I mean, you know, she's a survivor. You know. What about Christy McNichol? I mean, another survivor. And I know, but this is taking a real dark pop culture.
George has no idea.
Yeah.
No, I'm keeping up.
So, and another random question I got to ask you. So, in Fast Times at Ridgemont High,
yes, sir.
Jeff Spicoli decides to take his reward money to get Van Halen to play his party.
Absolutely.
Who would young Gore get if he had reward money to hire a band?
Oh, fuck. I mean, it depends what year. I mean,
let's go. Let's say you were 20.
Yeah, all right.
You were 20 years old.
I don't know, man. It might even be something extreme, like I Hate God at that time. Something weird and like extreme. If I was a little kid, it might have been Iron Maiden or something, or, you know, if it was 84 Metallica, or, you know, 85 Slayer, or, you know, it's I don't know. It'd be hard to think of who I'd really want to pay money to play.
20-year-old, we'll go with I Hate God.
Yeah, I mean, because they were new.
I think big Iron Maiden. You got the
but when I was 20, it wasn't really. I didn't really care so much about Maiden when I was 20, because they put out a lot of shit albums. They had a shit singer, and I was like, you know what? This hurts my heart. Yeah. Like,
shout out to Seventh Son.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot we had this. I wasn't talking about Seventh Son when I mentioned shit album.
No, you're talking about Blaze Bayley, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And through Sam, I actually, you know, to give Sam credit, I actually listened to Seventh Son of a Seventh Son.
Yo, shit's
because
bad.
It's, you know what? It's not as bad really as I thought it was, or you know, it's like it took a minute, but it's not as bad as I thought.
Listen, my band's making a record. I started writing the lyrics to this one song, and we were at practice yesterday. We already recorded it. And I turned to my bass player, who's a big Maiden fan. I'm like, do you not recognize the whole chorus that I still, like, lyrically, not the melody?
Nice.
And he's like, no. And I'm like, yo, Infinite Dreams. I lifted like 4 lines off the song, and it like blew his mind. And no one will ever get it or understand.
It's even better.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Then it's fine.
Yeah.
And it's safe territory.
You should go to the old stuff and do that.
I just, Infinite Dreams is such a ridiculously random song that most people hate. Really, just
it's always weird. It's kind of like, you ever like take a nap or go to sleep and you wake up and there's a song directly like when you wake up.
Yep.
Which is kind of creepy because that means you were sleeping for 2 hours and you were listening to music while you were sleeping, which has always been pretty weird to me. So like, I'll wake up. There's times I just can't get certain things like out of my head, even over the years. Like, I don't know what, but like weird parts of Blondie songs, parts of like weird Judas Priest breaks and like Judas Priest. It's just, they just come from nowhere. It's like pretty weird,
George?
I don't know.
Yes.
You? No?
What?
You don't have these random songs, or is it
Of
just
course.
me and Gore? I'm sorry, me and Goat.
Yeah.
Me and LG.
Yeah, it's called, an earworm.
An earworm.
That,
yeah.
Where you just can't get
You
it
know
out
what?
of your
Sometimes
head.
I just feel like he's so far removed from music now. And music was such a big part of your life.
Yeah.
That sometimes, like, I mean, do you even really listen to a lot of music these days?
No, it's mostly podcasts, audiobooks, things more audio.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about hanging out with you
Yeah.
is that even if I know a little bit of something, I won't engage because I know you know so much more about it that I just listen to what you're saying. It happens all the time. You'll start talking about like Scorsese and all these different things I'll know about, or a band, and then I'm like, no, I think you pretty much wrapped it all up right there. I got nothing because you just, and you're like that too. Gore. Yeah.
Go Gore. But and I do the same thing like when it's something smart and like normal, like adults know. Like I just let him talk because I'm like, oh, I don't know much about like refinancing a home, like just like normal shit. I'm like,
Makes me sound way more adult than I am.
yeah. Speaking of Scorsese, did you like The Irishman?
Yeah, I did. And there's parts I didn't. I don't know. I thought it was okay. It was really hard to watch De Niro's fucking face and his fake CGI eyes. I didn't understand why they did that to his face. His face looks weird in the movie. Not so much where I couldn't refuse to watch it. It was just a little annoying.
It threw me off for a second, but like Scorsese, especially with that cast, is like Tarantino for me. Like you're waiting for something with that cast and him to come out like you're like, holy shit, like I need to see this Irishman. And then like based on the book, I mean, whether or not Frank Sheeran was full of shit, I don't really know.
I didn't read the book, so
Yeah.
I mean it'd be better if I read the book. I could probably answer it better. But just visually, I thought it was cool. I thought that a lot of stuff, not a lot, I thought that a little percentage could have been edited out. They could have condensed it to really. They could have made it 2 hours. They could have.
It's hard. You do know what De Niro looks like when he was young, so
Yeah,
it's kind of.
It's not just that movie. Anything De Niro's in now, they use CGI on his face and his eyes, and it's just really creepy and unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're too fucking old to do the role, where you have to. They're not even. It's not even makeup. It's like fake eyes. The coloring his eyes, and it's like so obvious. You're making him look like a half breed. It's just like, what, like, yo, man, just forget about it. Like, do the Irishman, and that's it. You don't need to really act anymore because number one, he's not a good actor anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Just my opinion. It's over for him.
Mm-hmm.
Just you don't need to be doing this anymore. It's like unnecessary. Do this role, do the Irishman, and that's it. Had a great career.
Pesci was the best part of the movie.
Pesci pretty much saved the movie, I think.
Yeah.
And I think like De Niro's character was just a little, lackadaisical. Oh yeah, if you didn't have Pesci, then it would just been like, it would have probably been unwatchable for a part of it. I think some of his ideas, he ran out of a lot of ideas with stuff he used for Goodfellas, and he couldn't go back. So I think there's still remnants you see where he's like, he wishes he can do certain things that he did already. It's like, I feel like he kind of ran through a lot of his ideas, even with violence, even with like, in relation to the way he portrays his own violence.
Mhm.
It's sort of been done already, and I don't know if he really came up with a lot of different ways. Because, you know, Goodfellas was really spontaneous then. It was thought about, but not thought about. He wrote scenes and things for Pesci to say, and then some stuff was freestyle. Some stuff was completely ad-libbed.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a hard bar.
Yeah.
That's a hard bar.
It's almost an unfair bar, but if you're going to make a 3-hour movie,
325.
Right, exactly. You need to probably think a little bit about how you can cut back a little bit, because that's a big investment.
You
people
can't
to
not
watch.
want Goodfellas, whether you realize it or not. You're watching it, and there is some element that has that bar, even if you're
right.
like,
But I want give me Mean Streets. It doesn't have to be Goodfellas. Give me Mean Streets. Give me
Casino.
Give me some of his older stuff, even something like that. It's just,
I guess, like, you know, things change. You know, like I don't know what it's like to make a movie, and those movies came out like so long ago. You know, it's just
Goodfellas is 30 years ago. It's hard. You know, it's a testament. It's a testament to how great that movie is, because you can put it on, and I still feel like it's yesterday. It don't feel like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when you might have woke up in 1985 to get a bowl of cereal, 1955 was 18 fucking planets away, dude.
For sure.
There's no way to obtain that. You didn't want to go back. You're like, yo, the Honeymooners black and white stuff, that's 80 years ago. You couldn't even relate to that.
Right.
Now 30 years ago is like 10 years ago.
Right.
I listened to albums 30 years ago. I'm like, this is like almost pathetic in a way, because it's so fucking weird.
Right.
You know, this like time lapse of something that people, you know, scientists can't even really discuss, you know, what it really is if you want to get down to it scientifically, which is a whole other story. But yeah, I mean, Goodfellas, that was 30 years ago. Mean Streets was 46 years ago.
Damn.
So
a lot of good stuff came out in 1990. State of Grace was another good movie.
Slept on movie.
Slept on, right?
Definitely slept on movie. Definitely a slept on movie. State of Grace was excellent.
Yeah.
Because you had Sean Penn, who was just like being himself, but not so over the top where he was like, I can't watch this guy. Like he was really good in that. It was definitely State of Grace was a great movie. Great movie.
Yeah,
excellent
Gary Oldman.
Exactly. I mean, that's one of his best roles. That's actually fantastic.
Yeah, for sure.
Obviously True Romance too, but that's
True Romance is funny because he was in it not for long, but boy, do people remember him in that.
Well, because he dominated a large portion of that.
Yeah.
Because people didn't know who the fuck he was at first. People like, yo, is this guy an artist? I remember people asking me, was this guy an artist? Like, was he a rapper or something? I'm like, yo, that's not a rapper. That's not Jamalski. That's not some real...
The original riff raff.
I'm like, exactly. I'm like, it's not him, dude. He's an actor. He does other things. You can see him in the movie wearing a suit without the dreads. So like, people didn't get that then because he was so fucking good in that. Where it was like, you know, you wanted to see a whole other movie with that guy. Like, let's get 2 hours of that guy. Let's see what he was doing with the hookers before this guy walks into the room. How was his operation run?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because that character lives on, and he was in it for such a short portion of time, and that when he was gone, I was like, how is there still more movie left?
It was important because in a movie, you need to care about the characters.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that this particular guy, you fucking love the guy. Like, it wasn't just like caring about him. You're like, yo, I want more. Where's more? Where's, you know, is he gonna, you know, and he really wasn't, in the movie, the whole, you know, towards the end and stuff, but you wanted more from that character.
And you know the movie, right? True Romance?
Yeah.
So the fight between Gandolfini and Patricia Arquette was one of the most brutal things ever filmed. Like, it
was very brutal. It was
Brutal.
extremely brutal because it really didn't. You
Felt
don't really
real.
know how to feel. You were
It
just
felt
like
real.
It felt real, and you were like, "Yo, dude, chill." Like,
Yeah.
that's not like really.
I know.
And she was just like, "Yeah, fuck you the whole
Yeah.
time." And you were like, "Oh, I love this girl. It's like, she's my idol. I want to marry her, and I worship her." And
I'm
like
like,
all that
she
stuff,
got
you know?
fucked in a phone booth, and now she's fucking fighting this dude. It's
She's
like,
great.
She set
She's
a
just
bar
great.
for, you know, future.
Absolutely. And
girls like
and
these.
you know, and she's strange in real life, but in a cool way. She's like supposedly this really cool chick, and
yeah.
I could imagine back then must have just been super cool, just like hanging out with her.
I had this one last question for you, and you might not know.
It's not about Christy Canyon, is it?
Yo, you
That's
have
a-
no
Somebody's got two more
idea.
questions.
That's a different podcast.
You have no idea, like, how, like, she was very important in my life growing up.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
yeah, she was, yeah, wow.
She was one of a kind. It's hard to explain Christy Canyon since I don't know why I brought it up, but
You brought up Christy McNichol.
yeah, I brought Christy McNichol. Shame on me because those are two different species.
Christy Canyon still looked great, by the way. Just want
Christy
to
Canyon definitely looks good for being in her 50s.
Yes, and she seems very, like, unaffected, but, you know.
She's still a whore and loves it,
Yeah.
basically.
For the kids out there listening that don't know who she is, you guys have Google. But so you and Bill did a song called Pentagram, right?
Yes, sir.
So I was just like listening to the beat and the actual music. I was trying to remember. I feel like it was like from like a horror movie, maybe like late 70s. Did that ring a bell as far as the production on that song?
It's
Great
very
song.
It's very possible. I think it was more 80s.
Okay.
I mean, it's obscure or whatever it is, and
Okay.
even because of the way shit is now, it's like I don't even want to mention it.
Okay.
But I think it's 80s. I don't think
Gotcha.
it's it was in the
All right.
70s.
I'll
you know,
stop
I think it's-
taping that.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, cool. I mean, that's it.
That's it. We've already asked him on the original episode the final question,
Yeah.
so I don't think we have to do it.
Yeah, we don't have to
Again.
do it again. So, I mean, yeah, that's it. Like, thanks for the update. You have a lot of music fucking coming out, and that's it, man. I continue and wait for
Yeah.
it, and it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I appreciate you guys for having me, and we'll definitely build soon. There's some more material.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah,
We could talk about Angela White.
yeah. There's going to be a lot more conversation when this podcast ends.
Good
With
night.
questions.
If I rule the world, I love 'em, baby.